Hey guys, my name is Fiona and I am a deferred entry medical student. I got 4 A stars last year at A level in biology, chemistry, psychology and EPQ, and today I'm going to show you how to get an A star in A level biology using Anki. I'm going to do more A level and medicine and lifestyle content, so if you'd like to see more of that then please subscribe. Okay, this tutorial will be useful to everyone who wants to learn Anki, especially biology and pre-medical students. I did OCRA biology, so I'm going to be referencing the specification as I go along, but honestly this is applicable to everyone who wants to learn. I struggled with learning Anki for the first time because there were no YouTube tutorials on how specifically to use it for A level. There are so many different resources that it can be very overwhelming and really intimidating initially. It's very catered towards medical students. There's a very steep learning curve. It's comparable to Quizlet, but I honestly think that Anki's interface was easier for me to adapt to once I got the hang of it. Just a disclaimer that I'm not an expert on Anki, this is just what helped me revise for A-level biology, and I'm just wanting to share those tips. Okay, so first of all, what is Anki? Well, I'm pretty sure if you clicked into this video, you probably know what Anki is. It's so popular for medical students and for a good reason. It utilizes a spaced repetition technique, which is basically when the more difficult flashcards are shown more frequently and the more easier flashcards are shown less frequently. And the aim is to minimize the gaps in your knowledge to make sure that you're really on top of your content. Okay, so jumping into the actual tutorial, I'm going to be using my MacBook. All links that I mentioned will be available in the description below. You go on the website and it is free for all computers, including Mac and Windows. I think it's around £25 for iPhones and iPads on the App Store, but it is free to Android phones, I think. So the first thing that we're going to learn is how to make decks and subdecks. So here are my 3 decks: biology, chemistry and psychology, which were the subjects that I did. Decks are kind of like folders. Every subdeck that you put inside it is like a bookmark or like a chapter within the folder. I made it so that I had 1 module per subdeck. Whenever I was struggling with a specific topic, I really struggled with genetics personally, I could just study that own chapter and I didn't have to study the entire specification. So to create a deck, you can just click the create deck below here, and for purposes we'll call it Anki tutorial, and then that creates a separate deck here. And then to create a subdeck, you'll also create a deck, Anki subdeck, but then you can just drag that under the Anki tutorial deck and it will expand as so. Okay, so essentially what these numbers here mean, the new column means the cards that you have made but you haven't reviewed them yet. And review is basically when you just study them, see the card and rate the difficulty in the Anki app. So that's these blue numbers here. The green numbers basically means the cards that you have learned before but you need to revise them again. And you can also set the maximum number of cards that you want to review in a day. So if we click in this here, in the options, you can see that I set the maximum review as 100 cards per day and 500 new cards per day. Moving on how to utilize these flashcards. This is a card that I previously made, which is available on my biology Anki deck, and you will have a flashcard in front of you with a question, and the question is basically osmoregulation is the blank, and by clicking the space bar you can see the answer. You then rate how easy or difficult you found that. So if I click again, it'll show that card in 10 minutes. If I click hard, it'll show it in 4 days, and if I click easy, it'll show it in 2.5 years. I found that quite easy. I'll now be showing you the 3 card types that I use most often, and they are very simple to use as they don't require any add-ons or any plugins. They're already integrated into the Anki software. So the first card type that we're going to be learning is the basic card type. If it wasn't already obvious in the name, it is the most basic card type and you can do the most with it. The first thing that we can do with it is the key terms and the definitions. So if we say mitochondria, and then we can put powerhouse. Here we have the question, which is what is the definition of mitochondria? And then the answer is the powerhouse of the cell, which is not very scientific or accurate, but for this tutorial we will accept that. And then once we add that, and then we can have a look at what we put in. It will look like a question, and then once you click the spacebar, it'll show the answer. For the basic card type, this is an example of what I did. Homeostasis, we have the body's ability to maintain a stable environment. We also have the definition of chemiosmosis, which is the diffusion of protons down a semi-permeable membrane. Another way you can utilize the basic card type is by putting past paper questions that you found difficult or didn't get right the first time, and that just helps you regurgitate that information over and over again. Okay, if we look over here, this is from the OCRA 2020 processes paper. And here I have a question on what the type of microscope is. Now let's just copy that. I'm going to take a screenshot here, and then I'm just going to put that there. And then the answer is transmission electron microscope. So we can also copy that and put that in the answer box below. And then once you add that, it will look like this. So here's our question, state the type of microscope, and then once you click spacebar, it'll show the answer. The next card type that I really love to use is cloze, and this is a fill in the blank card type. So for example, let's do a cloze here. The shortcut for Mac is Command-Shift-C, and then mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, and then once we add that, we can have a look at what it looks like. So it will show as a blank and you have to try and fill in that gap. What is a powerhouse of the cell? And it's mitochondria. So here are some examples of what I use cloze for. Beneficial mutations are when the protein is synthesized from blah blah blah. And we all know this question. Health refers to the states of mental, physical, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease. I think I can remember that in my sleep. Okay, another way that you can use cloze and where it is most helpful is when you're trying to learn processes and know the order of the steps within the processes. So for OCRA, there are 4 specific cycles that you need to know, and it's the Krebs cycle, the Calvin cycle in photosynthesis, the nitrogen and carbon cycle, and we'll do Krebs cycle today. So here are the 4 steps. They're definitely not complete, but I'll just copy that. And then once we paste it in here, you have all 4 steps, and then we're going to close those steps. So C1 means card 1. So in total, this will make 4 cards. You can see here that it can definitely help with knowing the order of steps because it blanks out one specific step, so you have to know what is in between them. That is basically how it works, and it works for a lot of processes as well. Another type of cloze that I used was cloze 1 by 1, and this is basically when I can add 2 or more clozes in the same card. With the previous cloze type, it was very simple, so it only allowed for 1 cloze per card. But this is an add-on and it's more complex. It allowed me to put lots of different closes in the same card. Basically, this is one example of what it looks like. It has multiple closes, as you can see here, and then once you click it, you have to manually click these to remove the label, but it is very useful when you're trying to remember in a more complex way. The final card type that I'm going to be introducing today is image occlusion, and this is really useful when trying to remember anatomy or have a visual understanding of diagrams. So for me, I found it most useful when I was doing the kidney, so knowing where the nephron is, the loop of Henle, and the ultrafiltration process. I also found it really useful in muscles, so knowing where the T lines were, the Z lines, the H zones, and the action of actin and tropomyosin. Here I have a label diagram of a kidney, which I'm going to copy and add it to my basic card type. And then once you do that, you want to occlude image by double tapping, and it will show this image. This looks very complex, but honestly, we're only going to be using one tool here, which is already highlighted for you. It's shaped as a rectangle, and you're going to cover everything that you want to be a card. So all these yellow labels are going to be separate cards. Okay, now that I've finished, I have two separate options: hide all guess one and hide one guess one. Hide all guess one is basically when you only have one label showing and the others will be hidden, whereas the more easier version is hide one guess one, where you can kind of do process of elimination. So I'm going to do hide all guess one, and we can see in our history. Okay, so here's what we previously made, and as you can see, all of them are hidden, and this one is red, which is what is trying to ask us what it is. And then once we click spacebar, it will show as a renal artery. And here is an example of how I used it. This is basically the action of glucose and insulin in beta cells, and the red label is what we're trying to answer. And so if I click the spacebar, it will show as ATP. This is an example of how I used image occlusion in muscle cell topics. I covered all the labels, and it's asking us this one here, which I think is I-band. Okay. Once you get a bit more advanced, you can start to move on to add-ons, which are all available for free on the Anki website. For example, this heat map here is an add-on. It's supposed to be all green. It shows the frequency of how often you are reviewing your cards each day. It's very sparse right now because I'm on my gap year, but on the add-ons website you can see that there's hundreds and hundreds of add-ons, I mean essentially limitless, and the first one is Review Heat Map, which is by far the most popular one. And I previously also mentioned that I use the Cloze 1x1 add-on, and I'll just link that in the description below as well. All you need to do to download these add-ons is go on the website, download them, and import them into your Anki, and it should work as normal. That is all for today's tutorial. I will be selling my Anki cards, which are specific to the OCR A2 specification. Just a disclaimer that I'm a strong believer in making your own flashcards. I think that inputting the content yourself will definitely help you remember and retain that knowledge a lot better. But for those people who are behind in class or want to compare their flashcards with someone else's, this is a great. All the details are on my website, themediocredoctor.square.site. I'm also selling the notes that got me an A star in OCRA biology and chemistry, so check those out as well. I have a podcast called Medic Mornings where I talk about everything medicine, from A-level tips to interview preparation to medicine in general. And finally, subscribe for more A-level and medicine videos. Bye!